Hey everyone, welcome to Quality Advocates, and thanks for coming along to today's session with Dan. So Dan's going to be talking created around how good is your product. To be honest, I'll leave you talking down to Dan. So if you're ready, Dan, whenever you are, great to kick things off.
Cool. Yep. Do you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you all good.
Nice. Can everyone else go on mute? Just kick things off. Nice. Okay, I'm going to share my screen just now. Hope everyone's well in these chaotic times. Let me know when you can see my screen. I'm going to assume that everyone can see this, right? Billy? Okay, cool. Hi. Bit chaotic. I've just ran to change my kid's nappy before jumping on and getting set up. So she's 3 months old, so she was screaming. But that's all done now. We can enjoy this talk. I hope everyone enjoys this talk called "How Good Is Your Product?" So I'm going to start with a story, really. About a year ago, I joined a company called Photobox. Don't know if people have heard of Photobox, but essentially it's an e-commerce company that you can buy personalized printed products from. And within my first month of working there, I was working from home and took a parcel in from a neighbour, and I had to smile when I noticed that it was a Photobox parcel, right? So I saw this as an opportunity to build a rapport with my neighbour, a deeper rapport, because he didn't know that I worked at Photobox, so we could have a conversation, but also been able to collect some feedback, real user feedback. So it was a double win. So when they came to the door, I got chatting and explained that my new role at Photobox was to help teams to form some new strategies for software quality and testing. And my neighbour seemed quite excited by this. And he said that he used Photobox all the time. And he said, "Can I ask you a favour?" And I was like, "Of course." And he took a step closer, leaned against the wall, and he said, "So with the software, can you fix that?" So I was like, well, yeah, but what do you mean? What part of it is wrong? And he explained that although the printed product was amazing, really high quality, meets his expectations, and he's delighted by the experience of looking at his photo books that he's had printed. And he's gotten so much value from those photo books. Although he loves those photo books, the experience of creating his photo books on the site was quite difficult. He said that even although the software had all the correct features that he needed, it felt clunky and unintuitive, and basically got him quite frustrated to the point where he almost gave up creating his books. But he didn't give up because ultimately he knew the quality of the book was great, and that's why he's shopping on Photobox. The end product that he's looking for is the photo books, right? So that's where he gets the value. So when he asked the question, "Can you help with that?" Initially, and he explained all this. Wow, I was stunned. I was shocked. I was a bit blindsided, to be honest. But it felt like radical candor, right? It was fabulous. It was direct feedback from a user reporting his views on quality. And there's so much to pick out here, right? The fact that he loved the printed products. He thought they were really valuable and he loved the experience of them. But he really struggled with the software, the experience of using the software. And also that it sometimes, it did do what he needed, but from that feature perspective, but sometimes it was just difficult to use. And although there were features that he appreciated and relied on. And also additionally, he mentioned that whenever he's had to deal with customer support, that was fabulous as well. So there was a whole range of different feedback on quality for different aspects of the software, right? And the services supporting the software. And because he was so candid about how he felt about the software, I really got the impression that he cared, right? He ultimately wanted a great experience with the software that matched the experience of the value that he gets from the printed products. And this entire situation got me thinking about quality from different perspectives. What does quality mean for our software development teams? What does quality mean for the users like my neighbour? And then what are we really talking about in our community when we talk about quality, right, within our community? So that ultimately made me think about the definition of quality. Before I dive in and share some new models about how I think about quality, let's reflect on how quality is defined across different communities, right? Have a think about this question for a second. It can be a really difficult question. I know I've certainly struggled with this question in the past. I've had my battles with this question over the years. So have a think about what quality is to you. And what I'll do is I'll bring up some of the common definitions, right? So let's reflect on these. I'm not going to read all of these out. I've highlighted some words there, so let's zoom in on them. So we've narrowed them down. So what have we got here? We've got fineness or grade of excellence. We have superiority. We have conformance to a given design or conformance to specified requirements. Fitness for purpose, correct software, that software works, and we've got value to some person with the addition of who matters, right? Again, these are the gist of the definitions taken from these popular sources, right? Which would be the dictionary, ISTQB and ISO standards, and some sources from reputable people within our community, right? But to me, these things, it's clear that there's three key categories, right? Some of them conflict, and there's differences here for sure, but there's three key categories that we can group these definitions under. So one relates to excellence, fineness, or goodness. One relates to conformance, correctness, works, fitness, and purpose. And one is value and perspective, right? So just to clarify with these definitions, I don't think any of them are wrong. I think each of them do contribute to quality, but each of them don't feel complete in giving that holistic picture of quality. But together, they're really useful in building that bigger picture, right? So with this in mind, I'd like to propose that quality consists of three things, right? Usefulness, which is the value or worth of something. Correctness, which relates to meeting the expectations regarding wants and needs. And goodness, which relates to the emotive experience of something. So think back to my story about my neighbour here, right? Where his perception of quality regarding the software was that it was useful for creating and purchasing his photo books. That's where it gets the value from, is the printed product. So it was useful in being able to do that. It was correct in the sense that it met his wants and needs and didn't prevent him from browsing, creating, or buying his book, and it had the features that he wanted and needed. But the goodness of the experience of using the software was fairly low, right? And let's think about another example here, right? So just in your head, think about your shoes, right? I wrote a LinkedIn message on a chat recently with this example of shoes, right? Think about whether they tick all the boxes regarding what you need in a pair of shoes and what you want in a pair of shoes. Are they the correct shoes for what you want them for? And then think about how good are they, right? Are they comfortable? Do you like them? Do you actually like your shoes? Do you like the design, right? What about their usefulness? Are they valuable? Are they worth the money that you spent on them? Are you going to continue to love wearing them? Think about the worth and value sense from wear and tear as well. Like, when will you need to replace them? There's clearly a difference here, right? These examples, there's clearly a difference between these three different angles of correctness, goodness, and usefulness. And we each have different quality criteria and attributes relating to all three of these angles too, based on our context, right? So hopefully that's not too contentious. I know that it's subjective, right? But we'll come to that later. I'll talk about how I've handled subjectiveness of quality and testing in general. So at Photobox, we started to think about building this holistic view of all the things that we could actively have a lens on for quality. So across goodness, correctness, and usefulness. For those that know me, you probably know that I love a mind map. So here's the mind map. Initially, we thought about different aspects around the quality of the business. And of course, we thought about the quality of the software product as well. We also thought about the quality of the teams and the attributes of the teams and the quality of the project attributes that the teams are working within. And we split out the team's ways of working and processes to think about the quality of them separately. We then thought about the quality of the live services, so things like customer support and incident management services, and also the observability and the monitoring solutions too. And then finally, in the context of Photobox, we thought about the quality of the end product, right? The end product isn't actually the software, it's the personalized printed products that people purchase from us. So as part of that, there's the quality of the factories and delivery and those printed products and the packaging and all that kind of stuff as well. So again, thinking back to the story about my neighbour, the quality of the final end product he received was great. He got value from it. It was correct with no manufacturing problems or delivery problems. And his experience in seeing that printed product for the first time was great. And then think about the software product from a neighbour. It was valuable in the sense that it could do what you wanted and needed it to do. It was correct in that sense. It was valuable because it enabled him to get the end printed product, which is what he ultimately seeks value from. But it was the experience of using the software, the goodness aspect of using the software that was lacking at the time. And then also when he mentioned about contacting customer support, that experience was good for him there too. So quality consisting of correctness, goodness, and usefulness isn't just about software. This is what this slide's trying to show here, right? We can think about this perspective of quality across everything that also relates to software. So this brings me on to the 8 perspectives, right? The mind map really helped me with growing ideas around different perspectives of quality. And I wanted to dive deeper into the different perspectives specifically relating to software quality. So thinking about the quality of the inputs and outputs of our activities when creating software, and of course the software product that's been created as well. So to help me formulate this thinking, I created this model, and starting at the top, I'm breaking down the model across 3 different stages. The first stage is all the activities relating to the ideation of the software solution. The middle stage is activities relating to us implementing that software solution, so the creation of it and the implementation of it. And then the third stage is activities relating to the services within the live software solution, so the supporting services once our software is out there. And then I wanted to recognize different perspectives that each different group of people have relating to the software. So down the left we have external quality, which relates to that external customer or user perspective. Then we've got internal quality, which relates to the business and the team's perspective. We've got team quality, which is the quality of the team's attributes, essentially, which feeds internal and external quality, and I'll explain that in a second. And then below that, we've got the company quality. So this is essentially at that sort of holistic organizational level, the quality of the organization. So to explain these in stages, external quality relating to the ideation of a software solution. If we think about the quality regarding how our customers' wants and needs, right? How we actually generate the idea for a solution from that customer perspective. With the implementation, it's relating to their experience using the software, right? And then with the support services, the activities and services relating to the live software, that's focusing on the opportunities and mechanisms for the customer to seek support or supply feedback, things like that, from that customer perspective. Now, when we contrast that to an internal perspective, when we think about the ideation of a software solution from that internal perspective, we're thinking about the ideation of the software from the business value, right? How is this new feature going to impact our business? Is it going to positively impact growth or conversion or usage, things like that? When we think about the implementation, we've got a lot of behind the scenes quality, like with our code or architecture or designs, things like that, right? Or integrations. Then when we think about the activities and services related to the live software, that's the quality of our observability, monitoring, or release processes or pipelines, things like that. Now, underpinning that is the quality of the team attributes, right? So this completely relates to their abilities, their ways of working, processes, knowledge, skills, communication and collaboration styles, tooling, maturity, essentially, of the team. All of that affects our ideas. It all affects how we actually implement the software, and it certainly affects how we support the software as well. And then underpinning that is the sort of quality of the company stuff, right? So the company's culture, its leadership, the values and principles that are in place in the company, organizational level, the structure and strategies within the organization, the learning mechanisms that the organization supports, like internal communities and things like that, and how well the quality of the leadership support, recruitment, diversity, things like that. And all of them affect the team, which in turn affects the internal and external perspectives of quality. So the model is actively calling out these 8 different perspectives. And one of the advantages of doing this, the reason that I created this model, was to actually explicitly start thinking about how to assess quality across these different perspectives, but also to help stem conversations about how some of these perspectives can conflict with each other in the new features that are being built. So, for example, you might be promoting a new idea for a feature that might increase business revenue, but it might actually negatively affect the customer's delight in some way in using the software and their experience. Or you might be focusing on implementing something for the customer that could negatively impact the architecture or the business, right? So the next thing I want to say about this model is just the idea of proactive quality and reactive quality. So relating these back to the model, when you're thinking about the ideation and the implementation of the software solution, we can certainly be more proactive with quality. So that's where we uncover information and feed it into design and development, feed it into our coding, mitigating risks and building quality into our ideas and our implementation as we're creating that. But our services that sit after we've released something are naturally reactive, right? Our observability and monitoring tools enable us to spot problems, which we can then react to and resolve. So the higher the quality of these solutions, the more effective and efficient we can be with reacting and resolving these problems, so that we can do that faster and with less effort, so that we can reduce the impact to the users. But naturally, they're still reactive. So to explain the difference there. So once I had created this model, then it felt natural to relate different testing activities to these 8 perspectives, just to show the relationship between the different testing activities and what they actually focus on, what perspective they focus on. So there's the 8 perspectives again, but this time with different testing activities. So let's have a look at these. When we think about the customer's perspective with our ideation, there's activities that we actually, testing activities that should be happening there. Now, some companies might not be doing these, like customer interviews or testing your ideas or doing risk storming or risk analysis and then risk mapping as well. These are becoming more common within the role of a tester and a development team. If teams aren't doing that at the moment, then chances are someone else in the organization is doing that, because it's very important. Customer interviews, for example, is really important to do. That's how you collect a lot of your requirements, right? More common would be the activities relating to the implementation of the software solution, right? So this would be like exploring the designs and the operational software, code review, automated checks, investigating assumptions, things like that. Actually testing the software there. And then from that perspective of the services relating to the live software, well, then we can explore our incident management and customer services processes. We can look at checking our feedback mechanisms, things like that. From an internal perspective, from that ideation of a software solution angle, then that's where A/B experimentation comes into play, right? I'm not sure if you're familiar with A/B experimentation, but ultimately it's similar to exploratory testing, but it's investigating or experimenting with different variances of a feature to discover what works best from that business perspective. So we have two choices to implement this feature, two or more, right? And then we can experiment and then discover which option actually improves the business metrics that we care about better. Additionally to that, we can also explore our business metrics. Is the metrics that we're looking at the right metrics that we should be looking at for the business? From that implementation perspective, we've got things like code reviews, right? That's exploratory testing. Code reviewing is exploratory testing. We're exploring the code, right, that's been written. We can explore the architecture and the integrations, things like that. And then with our observability solutions and our tooling, we can certainly test them. We can improve them, right? From the team quality perspective, it's more uncommon for testers to do this unless you're also doing a sort of coaching part of your testing where you're exploring your processes, you're testing your processes and ways of working and your processes around reporting and different communication methods. You can test all of them, uncover information about it in order to use that information to stem improvement, right? And it's the exact same thing at the company level. We can test our company values and principles. We can test the org structure and strategies if you have the opportunity to and the, I guess, permission to do that. A lot of companies send out morale surveys, right? That's a way of testing morale. We can explore our ways of learning and the leadership support mechanisms, things like that. So there's two things to say about this. Firstly, I've kind of touched on it before, that the role of a tester is changing and evolving a bit. I think testers will more and more be involved in testing the ideation of the software. And if your role doesn't do that already, it'll also branch into testing software in production and those services too. So these are areas to think about. And many testers are also branching downwards to do that sort of coaching angle to improve the team's processes, skills, and other attributes relating to the testing activities that happen within the team as well. It's definitely going to expand more in that direction if you're not doing that at the moment. The second thing I wanted to mention here was that it's likely that people within your companies are already doing some of these other activities in some way or another. And guess what? Many of the tasks are completely relatable to what you're doing when you're testing products as well. So if you're not involved with those other activities to the left or to the right, find the people that are. Find the people that are doing the customer interviews, or go and speak to the customer support team and find out how they are improving their processes. And chances are they are doing some kind of exploratory testing. They might not know that, but they certainly will be. Build a rapport with those people properly and then discuss the similarity. There'll be lots of lessons there. Another thing I wanted to say here was that testing is not quality. Testing alone does not produce quality, but that's not to say that it's not deeply involved in building quality. In my honest opinion, testing is essential in enabling quality, right? If you don't have the testing activities that are there to uncover and discover information about the thing that's being tested, then it's going to be extremely difficult to improve those things. So testing increases awareness, which enables action ultimately. So don't get me wrong with this statement. Testing is definitely important and it has its place and it adds value. And we need to be promoting these different activities and skills. So inspired by Lisa Crispin, we ran our workshop last year together at a conference called CultureCon, and Lisa taught me a lot about dependency mapping. So this enabled me to take this model to the next step with actually injecting a perspective of roles and responsibilities across these different areas as well. So I wanted to include a slide to help show the relationship between the people involved, and this is in Photobox's context. So all of these roles here that you see on this page are roles that exist within Photobox. And basically in Photobox, let's start with the top left again. We have a customer experience team. They people are involved in doing those customer interviews along with designers and testers that carry out those activities that I mentioned previously, the testing activities. For the ideation from that business perspective, we have data engineers, we have A/B experimentation specialists and coaches, we have business folk and testers as well. And the A/B experimentation specialists aren't the ones that are actually doing the experiments. They're the ones that are testing the quality of the experiments and the quality of the experimentation platform, right? Thinking about variables that might affect your experiment. So not just looking at the implementation of the experiment itself. With the implementation of the software, we have obviously the product folk, right? We have developers, testers, and designers, and agile teams, right? With the activities and services relating to the live software, from that customer perspective, we have the customer support team, incident management. We have testers and developers involved in responding to those incidents as well. And then from that internal perspective, we have ops people and observability specialists, SREs, developers and testers in there as well. So you can see that developers and testers are kind of across all those perspectives within Photobox. With the team quality, this is where coaches live, right? We have agile coaches, quality coaches, developers, and tester advocates. We have the people managers there that are responsible for a lot of those activities relating to that as well. And from the company perspective, this is where there's leadership teams, C-levels. There's other teams that directly impact this, like HR, recruitment, diversity officers, lots of different people there. A lot of the coaches work in that box as well. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the 8 different perspectives, the activities involved in that, and the roles and responsibilities across the actual roles within Photobox that look at these different activities. Next thing I want to talk about is actually measuring quality. This is contentious. It's difficult. Don't throw virtual stones. Hear me out here. Quality, with how I've spoken about it today, is obviously very subjective, right? It's also very relative and extremely personal. And that's okay. Software is built by people for people. So it's unavoidable that there will be subjectivity within the things that we're building and within our activities, right? It's different for different things though. So take the shoes example, right? I like the design of my shoes and I find them comfortable, although I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't like the feeling of my shoes because I wear Vivo barefoot shoes, so it feels like I'm not wearing shoes on the ground. You can feel the ground, it's really weird. But I like that, right? My feet are now aligned to wearing Vivo barefoot shoes. So there is that sort of aspect of personal opinion, right? Software is a little bit different because we have things like heuristics and oracles, and we can communicate and collaborate and inject consensus decision making into our conversations about our testing and our quality and our processes. And I can see consensus within the community that testing is assessing quality, right? And it's uncovering information. So even although that's still just as subjective as quality, we don't really talk about the subjectivity of testing because we have that consensus, right? We can objectively look at software from different perspectives. We can use personas, or we can speak to real groups of users about their feelings on an idea, the design, or the software relating to the wants and needs. And we can also look at what ideas delight them or not, right? We can survey, we can actually do experiments there. We can use all that data to inform our decisions and grow our confidence in our perception of quality. The problem then isn't really about subjectivity, it's more about communication, decision making, and how to display the data. So here's some ideas that I've played with. Well, actually, before I speak about the ideas, let's dive into this story. I like this story. This is a story of 6 blind men and an elephant. If you haven't read it, there's a link there. The story depicts a group of blind men who have never come across an elephant before and who learn and conceptualize what the elephant is by touching it, right? So each blind man feels a different part of the elephant's body, but only one part each, such as someone touches the side, or someone touches the tusk, or another person touches the tail, and so on. You can see that image there, right? In some versions, the 6 blind men come to suspect that the other person is dishonest, and they come to blows due to the subjectivity, right? With the moral of that version being that people have a tendency to claim absolute truth based on their limited subjective experience, and they ignore other people's limited subjective experience, which may also equally be true, right? With that in mind, again, quality is subjective, it's relative, and it's personal. There's no doubt in that. We all have different wants and needs. We experience different emotions based on our experiences, and we place different value and worth onto things. There's another version of this story, though, that promotes conversation and collaboration. And through this, the blind men reach intersubjectivity. They reach an agreement and acceptance of a collective view to build that bigger picture of the elephant together through consensus. So, subjectivity plus communication and collaboration equals intersubjectivity, and intersubjectivity is simply shared opinions through consensus, or from a social sciences perspective, it's agreement, right? So we can take lessons from this version of the story into conversations about our perceptions of quality or testing or any other sort of process, and we can reach a collective consensus and aid our decision making around this. So here's a well-known set of images that represents intersubjectivity quite well. These images were created by Jeff Patton, and he used them in his book, User Story Mapping. They were used to depict the value of collaborating when discussing user stories in the book, I think, with conversations helping us to discover differing opinions, which can then we can then share and collaborate and reach consensus, right? I'm glad that we all agree then at the end, right? The image certainly is applicable to what I'm saying here with quality. With less siloed thinking and more collaboration, we can build a more collective perspective and can then reach some collective agreement to help us make better decisions, basically. So some ideas on showing a measure of quality. So here's some stuff that I've done in the past. This model, this colourful graph, shows a scale of confidence and perceived quality, that should say, through consensus against the scale of perception of complexity. So I initially created this graph when I was at eBay, but there wasn't really that much uptake in it at eBay. We've trialed it within a team fairly successfully at Photobox, and it works really well. So the idea here is that the team, through consensus, have these conversations in collaboration based on the information that's discovered from what testing they do, and they build that picture of confidence and perceived quality. And they plot it in a graph against the perception of complexity because they wanted to also do the same sort of thing with complexity. So this allows us to actually plot features on a collaborative agreement of where the features are in terms of perception of quality and perception of complexity. Ultimately, the purpose of this is to stem further conversation, right? It's not to say, it's not to be used statistically in any way. It's to stem further conversation around, do we need to do anything else? Or is it good enough to go with just now, and then we can pivot in the future if we discover anything else, right? It's a point in time chart. So for example, something that's very low quality with extreme complexity, take feature F, the conversations there would typically say, well, what we need to do something else, right? How can we either improve our confidence in quality, or reduce the complexity. Or we can do both, right? If there's simple ways to do both. Whereas something like feature E would say we've got very high confidence based on this data that we're getting from testing, this information that we've uncovered, and it's at moderate complexity, so we are happy that this is good enough. That's what it's for, stemming conversations. Next one. This is a dashboard that we did use at eBay for our leadership team to look at the leading and trailing quality indicators. So again, this was kind of like just for our use. We weren't using this to, I know that there's stuff in there around bug numbers and stuff like that. We weren't using that and as a sort of reward system. We were just looking at, that was kind of like the output. We were looking at, the focus for this was the process adoption, the leading indicators, right? So if we change our processes, how does that affect the numbers and the output, right? This is just one way of us being able to identify the quality of our processes ultimately. So, for example, risk mapping. Initially, when we introduced risk mapping, it was probably Amber, and then we tweaked it slightly to use a different process around risk mapping, and we got in the risk storming cards and put that process into place, and then that moved to green, and then we could see some positive improvement from the trailing indicators. So that's an example. And something that I have been working on recently with Photobox is trying to connect the effects of quality debt to the business. So this is still work in progress, to be continued. And so there isn't anything tangible that I can share here because it's raw work, but I have done some brainstorming. I can share stories to share what this means, but ultimately it's looking at the effects of quality that has on the business metric. So to show how, what I was saying earlier with the 8 perspectives model, to show how some of the perspectives can conflict, right? So as a way of an example, at Photobox, we used to have this bug on our website where if you selected a rugged iPhone X case, in the top menu, the screen that loaded was for the normal, non-tough iPhone X case, but it still showed the picture of the tough case. So many customers didn't notice that they ended up buying the standard case. And of course, they received the normal case with a picture of their child or pet, and although it wasn't the tough case that they actually wanted, they still only paid for the normal case, and it still fitted their phone. So 99% of the time, they would just keep it and not complain, right? They paid for what they got. The case still fits their phone, and it still looks great since it's a picture of their child or pet, right? Here's the thing. The normal case is £5 cheaper than the tough case, and this bug lived for a long time. So think about all the iPhone X cases people thought that they were buying when they got the soft case or the standard case across this long time. Now think about this. Every time it happened, Photobox missed out on that £5 per sale. So that's a lot of money. This is a real example where we can directly connect the quality of the implementation of some software having negatively impacted the business in terms of revenue. Now, another slightly harder to connect example would be through an A/B experiment, right? We did an A/B experiment on our iPhone free prints, Photobox free prints app, around changing the push notifications. So ultimately, there was a push notification originally that said at the end of the month, it said at the start of the month, hey, here's 50 free prints, yay, go use them. And we wanted to do an experiment on whether changing that to be an end of the month message saying, oh, time's almost up, use your 50 free prints before you lose them, that kind of message at the end of the month. Now, the theory was that end of the month message would improve revenue, right? We would get more people using the free prints and then subsequently buying more photos. So therefore, it would increase usage, right? Now, we did the experiment, and of course, revenue went up, right? Our usage went up because people are rushing. But what happened was repeat custom went down because the message at the start of the month is a dopamine kick, right? You're getting something for free and you've got your time to take to use it. Whereas the message at the end of the month is an anxiety message, right? Oh no, I'm running out of time. I need to select these pictures as quickly as possible, and then I'll make some mistakes inevitably selecting the wrong pictures. And then when I get them through and I'm looking at them, I'm reminded of that anxiety every time I look at these pictures. So I'm not going to use that site again, right? That kind of message, right? So this is where trying to figure out ways to actually display the connection between even that kind of quality with our not with our experiments, but those kind of features to the business, right? And sometimes it's difficult. Like that example, initially we saw the spike and increase in revenue and increase in usage. So it was like, yeah, this is all good. But then actually over time, been able to identify the risks of repeat custom due to the messaging. And the value of doing this kind of connection is to ultimately answer that question. Is it good enough? Is there a happy medium where we can increase the revenue but still not cause the anxiety? And that's what we ended up doing. We found that happy medium, right? So, as a side note, that example offers a really nice view on how the perspectives might conflict with each other, right? So making a decision to increase the quality of the business might detrimentally affect the experience for the customer and vice versa, right? So, recap and final thoughts. Quality consists of correctness, goodness, and usefulness. That's what I've tried to pitch here, right? And there are lots of different definitions like we explored. And collectively, they give this picture of correctness, goodness, and usefulness. So I feel like as an industry, this is how we should be thinking about quality. And we think about quality in this way for any other object in the entire world. And also for when we are users of software, right? When we are users of software, we think about quality in this case, right? I didn't like that software, right? It was difficult to use, or this isn't correct based on what I wanted to do or needed to do, right? Or this is really valuable for me, right? There's lots of different perspectives that we have in quality when we're users. It's only really when we're developing software that we tend to go into this mode where developers tend to think of quality as correctness, and the test community seems to think of quality just as value, right? Whereas it's correctness, value, and the experience, the goodness of the experience as well. We can't forget about that. So the 8 perspectives model helps us to visualize the differences across customer, business, teams' abilities, and the company. Those different perspectives, spanning across the ideas, the ideation of the software solution, the implementation, and the services that support that solution as well. And this is this holistic view of software quality, I think, is what's needed. We can't just focus on the actual implementation of the software. We have to look at the ideation. We also have to look at how we're supporting that solution as well. And then finally, quality is subjective, but intersubjectivity helps build a consensus perception of quality, right? This is something that we're probably already doing with loads of other stuff. You have conversations, you collaborate, you inject consensus decision-making probably already. So it's just taking that to the wider step of doing that with a perception of quality as well. Rather than just say it's too subjective, we can't do that. Actually, we can collaborate and we can build intersubjectivity. So that's me. I'm going to stop sharing. I think we've got time for questions.
Dan, it's Sandy. Thanks for a great presentation. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yep.
Is the material that you shared proprietary to you, or does it belong to the companies you work for?
No, it's mine. So actually, I no longer work at Photobox. I've been made redundant recently. So it's all my material. So steal away. Just I do ask that you credit if you share the model. who's credit.
No, it wasn't so much from that point of view. It was more from the point of view as your fantastic materials given me some concepts and ideas of how to extend it further. And
Cool.
the reason for asking is, if it's yours, then I can collaborate with you offline and share those suggestions.
Yeah, nice one.
What you've got here is really powerful.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Thank you.
Ping me on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll do. No problem. Thank you.
One. Any more questions?
Yeah, Dan, this is Abhijit. One interesting question I have is, often we have a conflict in maybe the ideas or the views, like you said. So how do you end up resolving them?
So I use various different kinds of consensus decision-making techniques. So you probably know the thumbs, thumb up, thumb down, or in the middle, which is abstain. But there's a better one called, essentially, I'm going to turn my camera on so that you can. So I could do this. 4 fingers. Don't know if you can see me. 4 fingers. Essentially, one is that I agree completely. 2 is I agree, but with some reservations. 3 is I abstain, and 4 is I disagree. Right. Yeah. So the idea there is you run this exercise, and then it stems more conversation. So you give everyone a voice. If someone's a 4, then why? Right. They might know something that you don't know, right? Or the rest of the team. You might have 9 people saying, oh, we're all 1, and 1 person's a 4. That happens typically because there might only be 1 tester on the team, and they might have uncovered some information that the rest of the team don't know about. So it's given that space to have that conversation, and then that grows awareness, and then it grows knowledge, and more conversations sparks more knowledge, so that opinions might change.
Yeah.
And equally, if people still disagree, they have to explain their reasoning behind why they're a 1 or why they're a 2. Okay. And then same with a 3. Like if someone abstains, why? Is it because they don't have enough information? So then how can we share more information so that they can make a decision?
All right. Makes sense. Thank you.
Cool.
Hi, Dan. I've got a question as well.
Cool.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for your presentation. Now, I noticed in your presentation that you had a more encompassing view of what software quality is, and it reminded me a bit of user experience. If I may read the definition of user experience from the Nielsen Norman Group webpage, it says, user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its services, and its products. So how do you see, given that definition of saying all the users' interaction with the company, the services, and its products, like in your example with the support team, how would you say does your definition of software quality differ from the user experience view?
I would say that it doesn't really. That would be part of it, right? But from that customer's perspective, the additional stuff that I'm including is also from the internal perspective as well, that team's perspective or the business's perspective. So, for example, the team are also stakeholders in what they're producing, right? So, and then there's behind the scenes quality that the customer might implicitly use but not explicitly see, right? So, for example, the architecture or the platform, right? So if you think about the platform, the quality of the platform is something that the team have a vested interest in. When we think about tech debt and quality debt, being able to speed up our processes or speed up the performance, things like that. But the customer might not see that, right? So I would also include that in the definition as well. But I think I've never heard that definition before for user experience. I think that's a really good definition to include for sure. Yeah.
So would it be correct to say that your definition includes the same things that the user experience deals with, all the interactions with the company, the services, and the products, and then plus you go into details. You also include how the sausage is being made, so to speak.
Yes,
which is completely missing here, right? This is just from the end user's perspective, and you say, yeah, that's important, but we also want to deal with everybody on the inside, telling them how to make a better sausage, so to speak.
Yeah, but to give another example, take customer support, right? There's the quality of the customer support that the customer's getting, right? So that there's someone that they speak to probably, and then the quality of the messaging from that person and the help that they get from that person. But alongside that, is the quality of the opportunities and mechanisms for the customer to seek support or supply feedback, right? So on Photobox, on every page, we've got a feedback button, for example, right? Equally, from any page, you can reach the customer support team, right? There's a lot of websites that don't have that. You maybe have to go to a contact us page, and then within that, there's a customer support, seek customer support sort of number or whatnot. And how many different avenues do they have? Is there a live chat? Is there email? Is there phone? Is there other kind of messaging? I mean, I've seen companies where if you want to ask about specific product ranges, you have to write them a letter, right? They don't even give an email address, right? It's fairly ridiculous. So the customer support might be good, but the opportunities for seeking support are bad, right? So there's a different perspective there as well in terms of those opportunities and mechanisms.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And then, of course, alongside that, there's incident management, right? There's how do we respond to support requests that actually need some kind of resolution from the development teams as well, and how good are those processes? Are they streamlined? Are they mature? Versus are they ad hoc? And how do we care about them? You know, there's a range of quality there as well.
Hi Dan, had a question.
Hey, Oleg, how's it going?
Yeah, great. Well, first off, thank you for the presentation. Second off, congratulations on your new arrival, I guess.
Oh yeah, she's 3 months. She's an absolute delight. Compared to my son, was an absolute terror.
That's good. I had a question about the company quality side of things. So you've talked about how that sort of comes from and feeds into the whole process, bottom up or top down, however you want to see it. How do you get involved in that stage to really help drive all aspects of quality?
Oh, right, cool. There was a little bit of lag there. So essentially, just to recap the questions, how do you get involved in impacting the organizational quality? Okay, so there's different things to start with. Take values and principles, right? Some organizations don't even have values and principles. So a good starting point would be to ask why, right? And try and get some kind of movement, even through a community, if there's an internal community, to try and form some values and principles, either at the organizational level or at an engineering level, or even just at a team level that you can then start to feed upwards, right? And values and principles are really useful. They are pretty much essential in helping teams and individuals to make better decisions, right? If you have values and principles, then you've got to test them in the same way that you would test anything else. Are they good enough? Are they allowing us to make the right decisions? Are they even useful, right? Are they actually correct and make sense based on how the company feels, right? How you feel working in the company. Morale plays a part in that as well, right? A morale survey is probably actually a better first place to start, because then you can try and identify some of the problems within the organization at the organizational level. And I mean, at Photobox, we didn't really have an internal community, so we put one in place. That allowed us to then start thinking about updating our values and principles. And at the same time, the organization was sending out morale surveys. And we were spotting the morale surveys also help you see the trending of the impact of these things that you're putting in place. And then through that, the leadership team felt more engaged with the learning and been able to improve the teams. So there was much more open discussions to get leadership support. So it started to get to a good point, right? Good enough is the question it's a difficult question to answer, right? But that's where you get a feeling, right?
Yeah, no, that actually answers a lot of it. And I was going to ask, have you had any success? And it sounds like through those processes of
but there have been successes in some things, but equally there's challenges in others, right? Photobox have not really been able to impact the recruitment side, right? So getting involved in recruitment to think about the quality of our interviewing, the quality of our candidates coming through, and doing some skills mapping to say this is what we need in these new candidates, and this is something else that can be used to upskill the team attributes, right, for the existing team.
That's exactly it. That's like a number one point for me, to go into HR and straight away try to build a community. So you've actually,
Yeah. So, for example, there's another model that I've got, Tina the tester, right? So Tina isn't just a tester, but Tina works in a team. She collaborates with other teams, and she works in a department, and the department's part of a wider organisation that spans across the globe, and she's also involved in internal communities and external communities, right? So when you think about hiring someone like Tina, your interviewing shouldn't just be focused around testing skills, even although she's going to be a tester in a team. You also have to interview for communication and collaboration skills and teamwork skills. Then you have to think about working across multiple teams and working across multiple countries, even collaborating. How does Tina show her work to the testers that are in the office in the US, right? What avenues has she got experience with and skills with, like blogging or talking, right? Is she comfortable with travel, for example? And then the community stuff, is Tina going to be a participant, or is she going to be a leader within the community and help to drive the community forward and bring some topics in, right? There's those types of things is what we should be thinking about holistically.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. Perspective. What can we do? There's always going to be things that we can do that doesn't cost anything. Building an internal community is the blue-green money situation, right? It doesn't cost physical money to build an internal community. What it costs is time. If the leaders can commit, I don't know, a half day a week, even a couple of hours a week for a community space for everyone to come along and learn from each other and start solving some problems across any of those perspectives of quality, right? You can have a half-day bug bash, and then it's going to help people learn about testing and a fun atmosphere where there's possibly some prizes, and then you're going to uncover a whole bunch of information about the software quality as well. That's going to help improve quality, right? From many different perspectives. The software quality, because we'll be able to fix the problems that we discover. The team attributes, because people are going to learn more testing skills, especially if they pair with testers. And it's what's it costing? It's costing a half day, right? A lot of people do this with code camps or sort of like they spend maybe a week out of a 6-month period just doing some, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. Ultimately, hackathons, that's the one, thank you. So that's the same sort of concept where you're investing time to help in different ways, but it's not really a monetary cost to the business. But there's so many other things that you can do. Changing your recruitment style, like we were just talking about with Oleg, that's going to help improve things overall as well, based on the roles that you might have open already. So if you're hiring for a developer, just inject some testing questions and invite testers along so that it's a developer that already has knowledge about what good testing looks like, so that they can then influence the other developers in the team, so that we're building the skills from that perspective. It doesn't need to be hire a developer and then hire another tester to then be a coach within the team, you know. How do you upskill the people that are in the team to be able to do that as well? So if there is testers embedded in agile teams, can they take on a day or a half day a week where they're actually running workshops for the team and pairing with the team in a coaching capacity or a mentoring capacity.
No, that's some great practical advice. Thank you. The only one I could think of listening to your suggestions was give some finance guys some hard metrics. So, perhaps we could look at giving them some figures on rework costs.
Yeah.
And then calculating that from, failed releases, go lives that don't happen, delays, getting everybody in over successive weekends to solve it.
Yeah.
Which
and
could be added.
Right.
Yeah. And then perhaps the idea on your model that I was thinking about was, each of the stages actually to link back the findings that you fill in back to the point in time where they would actually reduce future rework cost if they were done effectively and taken into account.
Yeah, totally. And this is something that I've actually been thinking about regarding the quality debt stuff as well. Is a lot of people talk about tech debt and tech debt payback plans, right? Not very many people talk about quality debt. And I don't just mean bugs. I mean like debt from our decisions around quality, right? So a prime example is some companies are removing the role of a tester, right? And they're either telling those testers to become developers or leave the organization, right? What effect does that decision around testing make on quality, and what debt is accrued from that? And how do we identify that? And when can we identify that? How do we actually start to think about the connection between the two so that we can inform better decisions going forward? It's a tough nut to crack, but yes, certainly keen to have more conversation from that finance.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, that finance perspective actually gives a lot of credibility to the arguments, justifications put forward,
exactly.
And that's in traditional business case evaluation, and ultimately, even as quality advocates, we've got to do a little bit of that and be cognizant of how to put those persuasive arguments over.
Yeah,
but you're getting some great insights there on how to approach that.
The hard thing with finances as well is that a lot of companies do their budget planning annually, which means it's a long feedback cycle, right? In order to make an impact and increasing budget for stuff like this, putting a case together if it happens on an annual basis is tough.
What I've been finding is with some second stage startups going around to their second, third round of funding, that's the stage where some of the points that you made actually come in, because it's about what I call engendering and encouraging customer delight at the products, because that's how they grow fast. And your angle on quality clearly supports that, because you're taking that external perspective into account. So that's a big help. Thanks.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Any more questions?
We seem all good. Well, look, thanks very much, Dan. Really, really good talk. And you can tell just from looking at the comments, people loved it. They learned a lot, and I think they've got a lot of takeaways from today. So, yeah, thanks again for leading today and preparing that. Really good insights there. Will you make these slides public for us to be able to share?
Yeah, I'll share the slides. I'll share them. Is it best share them on Meetup, or I can put them on SlideShare and then share a link?
Yeah, that'd be great if so. And just to say,
the Slack group as well.
Yeah, we do have a Slack group now. We've just started, got a number of different members, so I've just posted that there. So feel free to join, continue this conversation. But thanks very much everyone for coming along, and hopefully see you at the next one.
Cool. If anyone has any more questions, then ping me on the Slack channel or on Twitter or anywhere really. I could talk about this forever.
Nice one. Well, look, cheers, Dan, and thanks everyone for coming along.
Thanks a lot. See you.
Cheers, bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.